Hi, Laura. Welcome back to BizJet TV. Nice to have you again. Where are you talking to me from today? Whereabouts are you today? Are you still in Nevada?
Lake Tahoe, Nevada. Yep, still here in northern Nevada. You got to be in the ski country.
Yeah, nice place. Great. So tell me a bit about,
spring's coming, and I would love it to be delayed so I can ski some more. So sorry.
That's a good one. So now you were flying around in your King Air before COVID. Then you decided to sell your aircraft, and obviously during COVID, not much traveling was happening. How is COVID changed the way you're going to do business and other people are going to be doing business? And how does the private jet fit into all this?
Well, it's been interesting because I sold my conference center, sold the jet, and it was really at a place of really resetting what I want to do, which is going back to my roots of more real estate. And then I actually have acquired Nevada private marijuana licenses. So nice. I'm going to grow medical and recreational marijuana. So in 2020, it was going to be my transition year. Then COVID hit, March 7th, I get back from my plane and there was a last flight, like 29 shows canceled. So at that point, my pilot was looking at buying the plane anyway for his operation. I said, let's go, let's do it. So at first we kind of shared it. And then I kept using it over and over and over. And finally, he just said, I'm going to take it. So I sold it to my pilot, which was great. And then I just took all of 2020 and did not travel at all. So I really, probably for the first time in 20 years, just took a little break and I loved it. And this was my new platform. And I swore I will not be a road warrior again. But as I move forward then with COVID, we move into 2021, now 2022, what is coming very apparent is to our marijuana team and our need for a King Air or something like it to move through Nevada, up and down Nevada, also in a few other states. So from a real estate marijuana perspective, those operations are in need. Am I gonna, use it? Yeah. I still think it's fun. What's interesting, Fabrizio, is how few women actually take the lead and own. It is that number has not changed. I know that I'm one of very few women.
Yeah, you're probably 5%. 5% of private jet owners are women.
Yeah, and I owned from 2007 to 20. I mean, I was probably one of the longer owners of one aircraft, maintained it, kept it. I kept it my minivan in the sky. And, as I write now my new book coming out on how I made my kids millionaires, that plane was a big part of our life. I mean, our ability to just get in and go and produce and be effective is life-changing. And my son is on his way to be a pilot, and we won't leave private aircraft, I can promise you. We just have a little minute away from it.
So Laura, how do you think your traveling by private jet is going to change now that we're kind of out of COVID? Is it going to be the same level of activities as before, or are you going to sort of travel a bit less, but more,
It'll be more frequent, shorter trips. Like my marijuana grows 2 hours from here, so I'd rather have about a 22-minute flight. Our large operation in Vegas, we're between Reno and Vegas, is what, 8-9 hours. So those treks will be back and forth. I have a huge real estate development in Boise. That's 6 hours. So it will be more regional is what I'm seeing in the projects that I'm currently working on. The farthest I'll probably head out to would be Texas, where we have more real estate and a Ford dealership. We acquired a Ford dealership. So I got in the car business during COVID. Oh, interesting. I got in the car business. One of my clients found a Ford dealership. Yeah. We debt financed it. Zero money in, took 51% of the operation. So it'll become more regional and less speaking engagements. It'll be more just, execution and operation of those companies.
Yeah, that makes sense. And this is what a lot of people are doing, because what's happened with the airlines, they've scrapped a lot of their routes. Now they're resuming the routes. They're saying, well, we're not going to fly that route. We're not going to fly 10 times a day on that route. And so a lot of people that are in these, especially in the Northwest United States, if you are in a city that's not a main city and you want to go somewhere else, you have to go via a main city like Salt Lake City or Denver, whatever, and sit around for 5 or 6 hours. And the chances are your flight will be delayed or maybe canceled because there's a pilot shortage now. The pilot shortage is happening because a lot of airlines said, well, we'll let our guys go into early retirement. The guys took early retirement. If you're making 20 grand a month for United and they offer you 15 grand a month for early retirement, you're going to take it and you're not coming back. And that's,
but there's also a bunch of unions that are going on over here who are just unwilling to get vaccinated. So there's a huge shortage of people who are just not going, into the workforce until that restriction relieves, which it looks like that mandate is finally going to relieve. Looks like mask mandates are finally going to leave the airlines again. But it's been crazy.
Well, here in England, they just announced today another airline has scrapped the masks. So nearly every 2 or 3 days, an airline says, "Okay, no more mask mandate on our flights. If you want to wear one, you wear one. Otherwise, you don't need to." So it seems like we're moving away from that now, and business is starting to resume. Now, how do you think, from a business perspective, how do you think COVID has changed people's mindset to the way they manage their businesses? You're involved in a lot of businesses.
I'm involved in a lot of businesses.
How has it changed your mindset, and how is it changing the mindset of other people that you've been dealing with?
Well, it's become effective. Like this medium, we have shown to make just as much money as when me having to go out to a large stage, rent a hotel, bring in the staff, bring in the stages, bring in all of the extra expense. We have proven that we can actually be more profitable this way. I think that it took the world to get conditioned to do it online, but money's moving and fluid. And the other thing I think COVID, a huge dynamic, Fabrizio, that I don't think a lot of people talk about is digital currency. It got rushed to the forefront because of COVID. I think a lot of people had concerns about just world currency in general. So much money has moved out of aviation, out of gas and oil, out of real estate, and it's moving into crypto. I mean, guys that I knew that used to be my standard funders on different projects, they're out. They're in digital currency, don't plan on coming back in. So a lot of the money, I think it's really shifted in a different dynamic just to serve lifestyles and what people really want. And I do think that the kind of older generation, right, 60s and above, they saw this as, am I really going to go through another change, right? Because the workforce has changed, right? There's a lot of permission for people to stay home. There's not one study that I've seen or real owners that run on profitability that would say working at home and working remote has caused them to do any better. Like, we never shut our office. I called ourselves essential because we're doing financial literacy. We were helping people with mortgages, whether they pay credit cards. I mean, how do they right size their finances? What do they do to consolidate their businesses? I mean, we were on the front line right away. So March 7th, I landed. March 11th, I bet I was on Zooms and interactions 8 to 10 hours a day, supporting clients who just needed financial help. So we called ourselves essential. We never closed. We didn't lock our doors. Nobody ever bothered us. We just kept doing business, and the money changed differently. I think what a lot of people don't realize is that this inflation is going to kick their rear sooner than later. If your money doesn't keep up with the rates of inflation, I mean, your ability to produce, there's going to be a tipping point of what you had in savings or investments, and it's coming sooner than most people think.
Yeah, and I also think this whole situation between Russia and Ukraine and the sanctions on Russia, it's just moving the Russians and the Chinese to do deals in crypto, because they can't, the Russians can't move their money. They can't accept any money. Well, they can't accept fiat currency, but they can move stuff on a crypto wallet for their, I know they're selling stuff in gold. They're using crypto. And this is just going to move even more people into the crypto space. Even in buying aircraft and chartering aircraft, I mean, crypto is starting to move into that space as well. We haven't yet seen a plane sold solely in crypto. We've seen about 25 jets at the moment being sold from crypto to dollars, so through an exchange, but not crypto to crypto yet. But I'm sure that's coming this year. And for all the reasons we just talked about. Now, let's just go back a little bit about your travel. So most of your flights are going to be out in the morning, back in the evening, hour and a half, 2 hours. Off you go.
Yep. Down for a few meetings, come back home.
And how long would it take you if you were to travel commercial to do these flights that you're planning on doing and that you've done in
at least double the time? I mean, anybody can do that math, because you have to be there an hour before. By the time you get delayed, I mean, I won't name the airlines, but I'm pretty well versed in which ones are constantly on delays, constantly inefficient. And just haven't lived that way. Haven't lived that way. I mean, I bet I had a decade of never even approaching a commercial airline, other than maybe like a really long international flight, where I took like Virgin Australia, several times. But other than that, it was very different once I sold my plane to go back into the commercial world and all the rules and restrictions, and just it's crazy. It's just, there's so much convenience and business ROI when you know how to have a plane properly. when you how to lease it, when it's owned properly. It can have management contracts and actual travel contracts back with your other companies. So the depreciation schedule and the deduction schedules are enormous. A lot of people don't realize how cost effective it is to have a private aircraft.
Yeah, a lot of people, they look at the balance sheet, and that's the wrong way to look at it. It's the time that you save and the deals you can do, which you wouldn't be able to do if you didn't have a private plane. Well, a classical example, I mean, it would take you 2 to 3 days to do these trips that you do instead of doing it in one day.
For sure.
And that was like that before COVID, but it's just got even worse now. So the need for private aircraft is even more, especially with something that like your business, where you're hopping around in the Northwest, 2 hour, under 2 hour flights from regional airport to regional airport, or from another little airport that you can get into with your airplane, which you'd have to go into some commercial airport 2 hours away, and then you've got to drive, and that tires you out and everything. So it just improves efficiency. Now, you just come out, I know you're coming out with a new book, and a lot of people that are watching the channel are wealthy people. And the question always is, if I'm a wealthy individual and I have children, how do I transfer that wealthy mindset to my children? Because it's sometimes, as you know yourself, usually wealth after generation 3 disappears. In
2.3 generations, the wealth disappears, and it's because of lack of financial literacy. So I wrote the Millionaire Maker series. I have a Millionaire Maker game, and now I'm coming out with this. It's called How to Make Your Kids Millionaires, and it's a step-by-step guide for parents. And what you'll love about this is it was written by an Air Force fighter pilot and myself. So it's 2 different stories, 2 different families. So I predominantly raised my kids, who are now 15 and 22, as a single mom, traveled 6 of the 7 continents. I mean, in the plane, going, constantly in business. I mean, high profile life, high profile experiences. Kyle's Air Force fighter pilot, 2.2 kids, very different path. So what the book is brilliant about, it's 2 different stories, 2 different families, and how we both made it. And so the theme for anyone creating any wealth is how do you put financial literacy in your family? It's not going to come from the school systems. And the way we wrote it, Fabrizio, is the first 3 chapters are really like the millionaire content. And then it goes on to, so what do you do when they're 0, when they're 1, when they're 2, when they're 3? It's an 18-year book. It's produced by McGraw-Hill, who I have my other best-selling Millionaire Maker book. So this is really my 4th of my series. And, I've dedicated the book to our kids as experiments, because I tried a lot of stuff. And like the minute my kids were born, they were employed by my company. They had Roth IRAs. By the time they were 4, they were learning to make their own money. My kids had a lot of experience in a lot of currencies because we're all over the world. We didn't cash them in. So we had different, basically, safes of money where the kids knew. Like we went to Mexico last week and they're like, okay, go grab the pesos. I mean, they know fluency of currency, and it's just, money's not the most important thing, but it has a lot of impact, and your need to use it properly is critical. So as those families, especially families who are watching this channel, have wealth, I mean, I would say, why would you ever hand that wealth to an uneducated next generation? And I will be the one to mentor and coach them and bring them up. I love going through trust structures. I love going through lineage structures on how that wealth transfers. And then I'm going to call it the responsibility and consequence of the children. What do they have to do to earn the right to have the money? And then what is their requirement to then keep it? Because I grew up in a farm in Nebraska, so I didn't grow up like this. This was an experiment after reading Think and Grow Rich and working with the Rich Dad Poor Dad team to say, could it be done? Could a single mom, become a millionaire herself, and now a multi-millionaire? I'm a millionaire at 8 industries, and I'll be another one this year. So it'll be 9. My goal is to hit 10 by next year, which crypto and cannabis will be my next 2. And I
also know, sorry if I interrupt, that Bob Proctor did say that you're going to be the first of his students to become a billionaire.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but I talked to Bob the week before he passed, and I'll do what Bob did. Like, Bob loved his work, and he did such profound work. He was such a key business partner and mentor to me. And I'm right out there, and I cannot tell the wealthy families and that's really my client, is let me educate your family so your families can keep this Rockefeller style, generations after generations after generations, not 2.3, which is the statistic. So like my son is getting a bachelor's and in two bachelors, actually, one in accounting, one in finance. He'll graduate in May with a double bachelor's, Georgia Southern. And guess what he'll say? He has never been taught what I taught. He said, I've never still been taught what my mom taught me, because in school, you're being taught to be an employee.
Yeah.
And that's actually what he wants to do now. He's going to go on to be a CPA, an accountant, and by December he'll have a master's in accountancy. And but he's only going to work for a minute, because he's going to come back out and run what I built. And he gets it now. He gets the transfer of wealth. He gets the magnitude of assets that we have. Cannabis is an enormous asset. He's going to specialize his CPA business in agriculture. And when cannabis becomes federally legal, I mean, that'll be a whole roll up. That'll be beyond anything we've ever seen. And huge need for aircraft to be flying around at that point. So yeah, we are just taking a little break from it. We are not done from it. And as soon as Logan gets his master's, might go to the NFL. And then during that time back into getting his pilot certifications all up and running, and he wants to fly again. And then we'll have family aircraft for sure.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing. A lot of people are learning to fly and then buying an airplane for business and doing the flying. So they're combining their hobby with business. As long as it's done professionally. I did do an interview a few weeks ago with a gentleman in New York who has a Honda jet. He has a real estate business and he flies around in his Honda jet. But, he's followed my advice. He does simulator training twice a year. He does more training. He does upset recovery. He does all this extra stuff, which I always recommend even a professional pilot do. But even more, if you are not a professional pilot, you need the extra training. You need now and again a professional sitting next to you just to overwatch you and give you a few tips and make sure that you're a bit like, a golf coach or a coach in the gym or a wealth coach. We all need coaches in the different areas of our lives. And it's the same with flying. And that's really, really important because, flying is a hobby. It can be a hobby, but it can also be a very dangerous hobby. And you have to really know what you're doing. This thing's moving through the air very quickly in 4 dimensions, as I always call it. It's not just, X, Y, Z, it's also time. And you have to really be on the ball. And the only way to be on the ball is to be trained in a certain way and, sharp, humble. And, that's the only way to succeed in this. Absolutely. Now, Loral, as far as the future is concerned, the inventory of private jets right now is at historical low, 3 or 4% of the fleet, where it's usually up at 10, 12. The big aircraft have increased in value 16% over the last 12 months. So they're going up in price when they usually go down in price. Everybody seemed rush to buy an airplane. How do you see it? And how do you see more people getting into this? I think it's going to be a US thing, or do you think it's going to be worldwide?
I think it's going to be worldwide. I think it has to be. As more and more business owners understand the economics of it. I know myself, I wouldn't have got into it if I didn't understand the economics. And again, not the balance sheet side. What does it take to run it? What does it take for the depreciation schedules? I mean, I'm not a leaser of them. I mean, I bought straight up. I bought a, brand new, King Air in 2007 and kept it till I sold it to my pilot. So I think there will be more and more smaller and more regional, and just for the efficiency. There's more and more women getting into business. I think education is critical. That's why I love your podcast. And I don't think there's enough economic education on what it costs, and it doesn't cost that much. I mean, it's not obscene to own a private plane. I owned it for decades. And so I think that it's going to come back. I think it's going to take education to get it to come back. And women, you know me, I'm always championing women to make more money, go beyond your 6-figure income women, get to 7, get to 8, and come up and join the ranks of those of us who play. There's very few women who play at the level that a few of us play financially. And having your own aircraft, I mean, it's huge tax benefit. Huge. I mean, I look at it from a tax benefit. I look at it from an efficiency. I also would say to women, when you really value your time and your time with your children, I can tell you nothing was better than my kids growing up on that aircraft. I mean, it was like literally my minivan in the sky. I mean, we took it everywhere. We had all of our things up there. The kids felt safer. It was like, a second home, and your pilot becomes your family. So I think I don't think it's ever going to go down. I would see it increasing quite a bit as we walk through, COVID, and we walk through what we're been having to be restricted from.
Yeah. I think I was just talking to my wife the other day about, when lockdown happened, if you were living in the United States, you still had a very vast area in which you could travel. I mean, here in Europe, they shut the UK down, they shut France down. If you wanted to go to Italy for business, you couldn't. But if you were sitting in Philadelphia and wanted to go to Denver, you could. So I think the opportunities in a country like the US, if you have your own airplane, and even more, if you can fly your own airplane, even better, then you don't have to depend on somebody else flying you around, or one of your family members can fly, like in your case, your son. that's great, because you can suddenly decide in the morning, let's go to Denver, let's go to Las Vegas, let's go to Boise, Idaho.
Yep.
And,
Exactly.
and you go.
All the places we go, all the places we go.
I mean, it's a great advantage. And you're right. It's the opportunity you need to measure more than the fuel and the maintenance. And it's what opportunities are you going to get with the private aircraft that you won't get if you fly commercial. And, and the airlines are going to go very slow on their recovery because they're afraid that, they're going to get hit again.
And a lot of the airlines too, didn't you see, they went to, I know like United and a few others, they went a lot at heavy cargo. I mean, they're traveling more gear cargo and supplies than they are people.
Yes.
Right. And actually getting, I'd say some enjoyment out of that. I know I have a lot of pilots as clients, and I'm helping them with their family's generational wealth and how they employ their kids and how they use those as businesses. And a lot of those pilots, I mean, they actually are enjoying the non-human side of it. So, I could see a lot of the bigger airlines, staying in that supply chain. And, people really want to move in business. They need to entertain private and not just leasing. And I know you're bigger in the leasing space. I'm just from a tax benefit and a corporate ownership and really control. I loved owning directly and owning myself.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I mean, I've got a little model that I show people now between ownership or lease. And the last few people I showed it to, they looked at it and they said, you know what, I'm going to buy.
Yeah.
Especially in the US, where you've got this special depreciation thing with the tax that you can do. It's different in other parts of the world, but if you are in the US or you operate in the US, it is very convenient to buy an aircraft. You can write off that depreciation very nicely, and use this thing as a business tool, which is absolutely fantastic. Laura, tell me a little bit more about your book and where people can find your book, because I think
we're in a pre-launch right now. The book comes out through McGraw-Hill. It'll be in all the bookstores the May week of Mother's Day. So May 10th officially is the launch. It'll arrive in bookstores. So between now and then, we are in a pre-sale because we're going for a bestseller. So what that means is we need orders now. Okay. And in exchange for the orders now, the book's $25 plus shipping and handling. So when you buy the book, the link is makeyourkidsmillionaires.com/Fabrizio. Yep. So you can put that in the show notes so they can go grab
that's just below the video. Yep, great.
Grab the copy of the book. And then what we're going to send you is $1,500 of bonuses. So put more cash in your pocket. I have a financial filing cabinet for kids. I'm also invested in a kids bank that'll be coming out in May on how you use banking and you use gigs to actually help your kids learn to earn money. It's very gamified. It's going to be fun. And then I'm part of an investment app. So now we'll have total soups to nuts, from financial literacy to banking and debit cards to credit cards, all the way out to how do they invest into stocks, all laid out for families. And I want to be their coach. I want to teach families how to put financial literacy for generations in their household. And then, so right now you'll have 2 months or so, whenever you're watching this, up until about May 10th to, consume the information we're going to give you. $1,500 of bonuses for thank you for the pre-order. And then your book will be shipped out to you. After that, then Kyle and I, my co-author, we're going to be doing what's called a masterclass, really teaching you and talking through your situations in your households. How do you start talking financial literacy? And, one of the things, having been in The Secret, is you never say you can't afford it. You say, how are we going to afford it? And we have scripts. I mean, how do you open a bank account? How do you employ your kids? How do you get them a Roth IRA? How do you get them savings accounts, investment accounts? How do you get them all of these things that most parents do not know, mostly between 14 and 18. How do you properly set them for credit and credit cards? When my son was 18, he joined one of my LLCs, 18-year company, has huge lines of credit, huge credit card options, and amazing credit, no debt. So we're just going to teach you how I did it. I share my story very candidly. So it's a tell-all. My daughter's 15, so she's still coming through it. And it's going to be fun. It's really, really great. We just appreciate any support. And families that are listening, financial literacy is not taught. And you want I'm going to say the Susie Warman and Dave Ramsey, stay small and safe. That's not what this is, right? I wrote the Millionaire Maker series. This is how it really works. How do you really create wealth? How do you really create money? So you'll have the money to buy airplanes, because your companies are going to need it.
Yeah, exactly. Laurel, thank you very much for being on BizJet TV again. Those of you who haven't subscribed to this channel. And that's all from me, Fabrizio Poli, and Loral Langemeier on BizJet TV. And we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you.